Hi there, I'm Dr. Nick Galli. I'm the mental performance coach for US Speedskating, and in this video I want to talk about how having mental flexibility is just as important as having muscular flexibility. So as athletes, we're used to stretching our bodies, and we know the importance of range of motion and flexibility of our muscles. But how often do we think about having a flexible mind? Not as much, and that's what I want to talk about. So what you see here on this slide is a task called the Stroop Test, and it's something that researchers in psychology use to test attention and mental flexibility. So we have here a box filled with a number of words. They are the words of colors. So the first thing I'd like you to try and do as you're sitting here watching this is say each word out loud. So now hopefully you've gone through and done that and we're successful. The second thing that I'd like you to do, now we're going to change the task. Instead of saying the word, I want you to say the color of the word. So what you found there probably was that second version of the test was a little bit harder because you instantly wanted to say your mind was confused, right? You have the word blue in the color green, and yet I was asking you to say the color, not the word. And so your mind got a little bit confused. Maybe as you went along, you got a little bit better. This is an example of being adaptable and flexible to the situation. The task at first was a fairly simple one, and you were probably pretty good at it. But then I changed the demands and you were forced to adapt. How many of you can relate if you've ever worked in a place for a certain number of time, a certain amount of years, or taken classes to always sitting in the same spot in the room? This is a scene from an old TV show called Cheers, where the two gentlemen who are standing, they would always sit in those bar stools. Every single day. We get very comfortable. And then one day that couple came in and sat in their chairs, and it was a real shock to them because that was their space. And I think in one way or another, we're all like this. We like to know where we'll be, how we'll get there. We like consistency, and we get thrown off as human beings when things aren't consistent. The problem is life is not consistent, and we've all learned that this year. Our whole worlds have been turned upside down by the pandemic, and we've all been forced to adapt. And people who are very rigid have had a harder time doing this than others. And if you're an athlete, regardless pandemic or no pandemic, you're gonna have to adapt on certain days for training or for competition. So cognitive flexibility, I want to just give you a definition. It's your ability to adjust your thinking, overcome previously held beliefs, and see things in a different way. You might be wondering why I have a picture of high jumpers up there. It's for a good reason. On top, you see, I don't know when this is from, a high jump from a very long time ago with a high jumper using what was called the straddle technique. So it's really interesting. If you look back at the history of the high jump, all the different ways that people tried to get over that crossbar until finally a gentleman named Ray Fosbury in the 60s jumped in the way that you see on the bottom of the screen. And it's called the Fosbury flop. And chances are, if you've ever watched track, that's how every single high jumper jumps. It's consistently the way that you can jump the highest. But before the mid-1960s, nobody did that. When it first came about, it was an adjustment period. All the high jumpers, they knew, okay, I've got to adjust, but they had to be willing to do that because at first they couldn't jump as high using the Fosbury flop as they had using the straddle technique or the scissor technique or any of the other ones. But the ones who were willing and able to adapt were the ones who went on to be more successful. Okay, so there's a few things that you can do if you want to become more mentally flexible. One is change your routine up. Just like we like to sit in the same place every day, we also tend to like to do things in the same order every day, which makes sense because that consistency helps us give some familiarity and comfort. But we have to realize that at times, things aren't going to go the way that you want them to, and you're going to be forced to change your routine. So it's a good idea to maybe simulate that and choose some days where you pretend that the shuttle's going to be late. And so how are you going to change your routine to accommodate that? Don't let the biggest competition of the year be the day that you're trying to alter your routine. Go into those competitions with the confidence that, hey, I want to be able to go through my full routine, but if I can't, that's okay, I can adapt. So changing your routine's one. The second thing, and I think it fits really well with that, changing your routine, is to just try something new, try something different. Try a new bar, try a new warm-up routine. Do something different to stimulate your body and stimulate your mind. Consistency is good, and I think there should always be consistent parts to what you do in terms of your training and your preparation. But I think sometimes we get so closed off and so rigid that we block out potentially helpful strategies. So try new things, and that's a good practice for expanding your cognitive flexibility. The third one is kind of interesting, and it's one you might already be familiar with, and that's to meditate. So that's just taking time every day, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 30 minutes, to just be, anchor yourself to your breath. Allow your thoughts to come and go and accept where you are. And there's some research that says when you do that, your mind becomes more open and adaptable. So taking some time every day, whether that's sitting or walking or while you're eating, to just really be in the moment. And there's some great scripts if you just go to Google on mindful eating, mindful walking, if you don't like just the traditional seated meditation. And then finally, ask yourself the controllability question. And this is more around how you choose to solve problems that come up. We all tend to have a preferred way of coping with stress and solving problems, and we probably do because it's worked for us. But as we get on in life and experience different challenges, sometimes you have to change the way that you choose to solve problems. And a really quick question you can ask yourself that will guide you is this problem something that I have control over right now? If it is, great, go on and solve it and come up with a solution. If it's not, you may have to back off from coming up with an immediate action solution and instead focus on controlling your emotions so that you don't lose control of your arousal, anxiety, frustration. So it's a really easy and quick way to get a sense for, okay, do I go after this and try and fix it and change it? Or do I just accept it and focus on me and try to deactivate myself and bring myself down? Okay, so in summary, flexibility of the mind is just as important as flexibility of the body for a performer. And if you want to enhance your cognitive flexibility, there are a few things you can try. One is to change up your routine. Another is to try something new. A third is take some time to meditate. And then a fourth is ask yourself the controllability question.